Hi everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel and another card making video tutorial. Today I'm going to share some Stardust scene cards using brand new products from the Mama Elephant June 2023 release. Scene cards are always one of my favorites, and this brand new Stardust Trail cover plate is the basis to build these entire scenes. Everything from the stamps to the dies are from the release, and then I've even pulled in my favorite moon masks from Holtz. I thought it would be, the perfect addition to this cover plate to build a little moon there, kind of, starting to show beyond that mountain range. So I'm going to mask off that outer edge from the stitching line to the outer edge of this panel, and this instantly gives the look that this scene has been matted on white cardstock without the additional bulk or paper. This is one of my very favorite ways to create this. Now I'm only going to stencil one of these backgrounds on camera. Both are done the same. The moon placement is just different on each, and I reused the Post-it tape for both. It still had plenty of stickiness, so if you wanted to create more than just even two backgrounds, you could likely do that. I'm a big fan of trying to get the most out of my supplies and things like Post-it tape. I'm going to use peeled paint. After I've blended the peeled paint into the bottom, I'm going to blend in a little bit of forest moss. Now you might notice I am not masking off any of these areas. It's going to be pretty seamless, even though each area is going to be very defined. This is a very quick and easy way to blend a background like this without a lot of extra effort. Now I will show how I am able to get the mountains, which are the last thing I blend, in a little bit. And I'm actually going to use one of the larger moon masks as just a way to mask off those hills. And it's a great way to kind of utilize something in a different way. I'm using some broken china now in the sky. This is our base color, and I want it to look more like night sky. The critters are out looking at the beautiful starry night sky. Next, I'm going to blend in some Uncharted Mariner. Now, even with these colors here, I love to pull in some black soot. Black soot is just going to deepen and darken, and for me, I always feel like it gives more of that illusion of a nighttime sky, or that moody factor that I love. I have used this solid moon mask to mask off my moon. Something that I think is really important with this moon mask, and I know I've got several videos here on my channel where I've utilized this, it's kind of something I come back to over and over, is once you remove it, the harsh line is not what I want. So I am going to start with antique linen. I personally love kind of some brown shades for my moon. I will pull in a yellow shade here in a minute. But again, I'm not going to mask anything. So we're going to do antique linen, and I'm not going to worry too much about staying in the lines. In fact, I'm going to blend outside into the blue sky because it gives a little bit of that glow. The glow is what we're looking for with the moon. After I have done the base color, we're going to take some gathered twigs as our dark color for the detail on the moon. This will also be our mountain color, which I started to blend, and then I decided, I better mask off that sky. So let me grab my largest moon mask, and I'm just going to slide it underneath the mountain range, and it works great. So if you have any kind of stencil like this, it works fantastic to mask off any area. And the moon looks pretty good right here. I do want it to have a bit of a yellow glow. I just don't want it to be overwhelmingly yellow. So when I'm all done, I like to take another color, either the antique linen or in this case, fossilized amber. And I'm going to go over the moon and I'm going to pull that glow outside of the moon shape into the blue. And it softens the edges and gives that illusion of the glowing moon. Next, I am going to blend in a little bit more black soot. And if there's any, like I noticed right away, there's some lines that are kind of harsh. So I'm going to go back with my green and my blue blending brushes and just smooth all of that out. The backgrounds are really what showcase these designs beautifully. Next, I have some white gouache. I am going to add a little bit of water to it just to make it a little bit more splatter preferred, I guess. It makes it easier to splatter. And I'm actually just using a misty matte to mask off the bottom part of my background scene. If a little of this gets over the mountains, that's okay. I just tried to keep the majority of it off. But I want to add to my starry sky with this white gouache. You could also use something sparkly if you wanted to. And you may notice that there are holes in this panel that die cut. And we are going to address that here in a minute for a sparkly sky. Once I have my splatter, I'm going to go ahead and remove my masks and I'm going to save them because remember, I want to do my other background just like this one. And I love removing these and seeing that beautiful white border all the way around. It is perfect. And this scene is ready to build on with sentiments and critters. I am using the Follow Your Dreams sentiment stamp set, Around the Campfire stamp set, and Falling for You stamp set. And I'm combining those. Now, most of my images are from Around the Campfire. The hanging raccoon from the branch is from the Falling for You, which, believe it or not, is a fall themed stamp set. I'm going to place all of my images for my cards on some Nina 110 pound weight smooth white cardstock and stamp my images with Hero Arts intensified black ink. For one of the cards, pardon me, I'm going to use the bear and bunny that are roasting marshmallows, the bunny playing his little guitar, and the fire. And the tree stump, pardon me. So 5 images from Around the Campfire. On the other card, we're going to have the fox. I think it's a fox. That is a fox or squirrel. I think he's a fox with those pointy ears. Don't you guys think? That's looking through the telescope, the raccoon hanging from the branch, and the raccoon laying back looking at the stars in the sky. And those 3 images are going to build the second scene card. I'm coloring all of my images today with Olo markers. Now, the Express It blending card is recommended. Sometimes I forget and I like to go back to my old reliable Nina that I have used with alcohol ink markers forever. And I will tell you that I am getting better and better results the more that I use my Olo markers and the more I get comfortable with them. So it's really personal preference and try out all those different things to see what works best for you. I'm going to start by coloring all of the brown areas first. A tip with the Olo markers is I use connector rings and only have the brush tip on my markers. So I have shading colors on either end. You're going to see me flipping that marker back and forth as I'm using those 2 shades for a lot of things. And I've not put the caps back on my markers. I had noticed that when I was taking the cap off constantly, as we're used to with a lot of other alcohol markers out there, that I was getting some blobs of ink on my projects. And when I talked to Olo, they suggested that that motion pulls the ink. It's constant that constant on off of the cap that we're used to. So to leave the cap off while you're coloring, and I had not one problem while I colored any of these images. So if that is something that you have found happening for you, try this and see if this works. Actually, it was really easy picking up those markers and not having to, I guess, take the cap off constantly was really nice. I love that raccoon hanging from the branch. I think that's so funny. I didn't necessarily make this a fall card. I probably could have used some of the individual fall leaves there on this card if I'd wanted, or I could go back and add those later, but I ended up not doing it for this card. It's summer here in the US and I'm not quite ready for fall. My pop of color on both cards is going to be this little touch of red. So this raccoon has a red scarf, which I guess does lead it to be fall or wintry. And then on the other card, the bunny playing the guitar is going to be red. I love a little pop of red on my cards. And so that is kind of how I pulled that in and just added that pop of color to each. Warm grays are used for the raccoons, just going a little bit darker for certain areas of the design. So around his mask and the stripes on his tail. And kind of doing, I really tried to do anything that was going to be the same color at one time. So you'll notice that the branch and the tree stump and the logs under the fire, I colored all at once. I didn't quite think of doing the guitar when I did the scarf, so I'll have to do that in a little bit. But I definitely did a little pink for the insides of the ears. All of the markers I am using are listed down in the description below, so check that out. We'll go ahead and just do a nice light base of warm gray 3, and then pull in some warm gray 5 before pulling in some warm gray 7. And then the pink for the insides of the ears. I like that he's laying back looking at the stars in the sky. There's even more images than what I used. Obviously, there's a camp and there's a sleeping critter, and what else is there? So many cute ones in this camp set. So if you like to camp, I think this is a great one. Oh yeah, I think maybe I just didn't use the sleeping fox and the tent. Oh, and there's a moon. But I used everything else from that set. We're going to pull in some orange reds, which are neutrals. And I did wait to do that telescope till the last. I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do there. I thought about doing color, and then I did end up going back with some warm grays. When I'm done coloring a certain section, I did put all the caps back on my markers. Lighter warm grays are going to be used for the bunnies so that they have a definite difference in color than our raccoons. So warm gray 1 and 3 and 5 on the lower end of the spectrum instead of the higher, with a little bit of that pink on the inside of the ears. And when we're all done coloring, we'll even add some little pink to the cheeks. I love that they're roasting these little marshmallows. At the end, I'm going to use a very light OR marker, orange red marker, just to give a base color to the marshmallow. I don't want to add a ton of color. I probably could have added a little bit more darker color as they're roasting them to show where the marshmallow's been roasted, but I didn't think about it till just now. I did add a little light pink to the bottom of the bunny's feet and then color over it with gray. This is something I've done for a long time with alcohol ink markers to just kind of show off the bottom of the foot a little bit, but also have it blend in. I don't want it to be a harsh pink or a bright pink. I want it to just kind of blend in with the rest of the bunny. I like that he's singing. For our bear, I'm going to go much darker with some dark browns. That way it's a different color than the colors that were used for the logs under the fire or the tree stump. I did a nice light, almost a reddish brown base color before pulling in my darker shade. Also a little pink for the inside of his ear. I tried not to speed up the coloring too terrible much. I know a lot of you love to watch the coloring. It is very relaxing. I agree. I do love watching coloring type videos or painting or any of those things. Yellows and oranges were used for the fire, and then I will blend or feather in a little bit of red over the top when I'm done. And I really like how that turned out. Let's grab our reds and do our guitar, our telescope with some grays, and our marshmallows with that little touch of neutral. And then I will cut apart all of the coordinating dies with some wire snips and die cut all of these so that we can go ahead and put our cards all together. Now, I like to do my backgrounds first, especially if I am using something like Oxide inks or Distress inks, but especially Oxides that take quite a bit longer to dry. If I don't want to hit them with a heat tool to speed up drying, which in my personal experience doesn't always work great anyway, I like to get those done and out of the way while I do something time consuming like color, because that way they're dry if I want to do any embossing on top, which I do. I want to emboss my greetings today for both cards. And I'm showing you here kind of how I plan out my design. So one card's going to have a couple of small greetings from Follow Your Dreams, and one is going to use or utilize that large Follow Your Dreams and then a smaller sentiment underneath. The design, I really let the design of the scene dictate how I did that. I also haven't layered anything back behind this panel yet, the Stardust trail cover, and I haven't popped everything out. We're going to do that here in a little bit. I'm going to cover the whole panel with my Simon Says Stamp powder tool before I place it in my MISTI, and then I'm going to position my greetings. This greeting down in the lower right corner, and then the large Follow Your Dreams over the sky. You can still see the mountains and the moon and the sky. It just fills in the top area of this card really nicely. I'm going to stamp everything with some Simon Says Stamp embossing ink, and then we're going to heat emboss with white embossing powder. Just tap off all of that excess, and then I will heat set. Make sure and keep your heat tool moving to help reduce the warping of your cardstock. The 110-pound weight does help a little bit. And I really like to do any embossing before I have introduced any adhesive into the design. So before I glue this to the glitter cardstock to show through that Stardust trail and things like that. That was very purposeful because I really like to do any embossing before so it doesn't stick to anything. Now you'll notice my embossing powder didn't stick. I actually tested it by putting some embossing powder directly on my background before adding any stamping, and it didn't stick, so I knew I was good to go. I'm using that roller brush on the Spellbinders Tool-in-One to roll out any of those little Stardust areas, and then I'll just use a piercing tool to pop anything that didn't come out. Now it looks a little funny right now. I did trim scant 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch panels of silver glitter cardstock, and I'm going to layer it behind. You wouldn't have to do the whole thing, but I think it lays a little nicer, so that's why I went ahead and just did a full panel. That silver then is going to show through all of those die cut holes, and I'm going to put something heavy on top so it glues down nice and flat. I love that it now looks like a starry sky with that big greeting. So beautiful. I've got all of my little critters here, and I'm going to take a black jelly roll pen and add detail to the eyes on the critters that have open eyes, noses, anything like that. If you've watched my videos before, you know that I like to wait to do that until after I've die cut them, as I find that the black jelly roll pen tends to, even when dry, it tends to smush out. It doesn't ruin your image at all when die cutting as long as it's dry, but I feel like it looks a lot nicer if you wait until after the die cutting is done. Then I am going to pop up my images with foam. So I've got some small and large foam squares, and I'm going to start building my scene, starting with the tree stump and the bunny sitting on the tree stump. I even trim apart some of my foam adhesive squares to make them fit better as needed. Popping up our images just really kind of helps bring them off of that background and make our scene a little bit more 3D. Once I have all my images in place, we're going to do the same thing for the second card using different greetings. I'm going to grab my panel. I'm going to stamp my sentiments that I chose for this card with the embossing ink and heat emboss with white embossing powder. So for the large follow your dreams, I of course used that sentiment, and then you are never too old to set a new goal or to dream a new dream. For the second card, we're going to use I've always believed in you and keep your eyes on the stars and hope in your heart. I loved these and felt like they just matched this background cover perfectly. Now I did play with placement for this greeting in the sky because I don't want any of the little die cut holes to pop out any of this greeting. It's so small that it might distort it, unlike the follow your dreams. Again, we're going to use the powder tool to help keep that embossing powder just on the stamped part and not anywhere else. And we'll heat emboss. We're going to glue this down over another piece of the silver glitter cardstock. This cardstock, the glitter cardstock, is from Hero Arts. And then we're going to pop up our 3 images on this background as well. Again, tool in one to pop out all those little areas, and then we'll just pierce out the rest with a poke tool. These tools are invaluable in your workroom, craft room, I guess. And then this branch, by coming in from the side, so it looks like the tree is kind of out over to the left of the design, and this little guy is hanging from the tree branch, and then the moon is coming up from behind the mountain range. That's my imagining of this scene. I talk about that a lot in my videos when building scene cards, that I often imagine some story in my mind which helps kind of build the scene. I very much did lay out my images prior to stenciling the backgrounds, and that was helpful for dictating where the moon was going to go on each card design. So that's why the moon is in more to the left on one card and to the right on the other. We're going to have our little reclining raccoon right above our greeting, and then we'll have our critter with his telescope over here along the right. We're going to finish each card with a scattering of, you guessed it, heart embellishments. These are some indigo hearts from Lucy's Little Things. I have a bunch of hearts in different colors that I've had for a long time. I love heart accents and tend to gravitate towards them as a nice finishing detail. I've also gone back in with my black jelly roll pen and added detail to eyes and noses. Oh, I'm so excited about these cards. I think they're so pretty. I'm going to place my hearts in a triangle tray from Simon Says Stamp for ease of grabbing exactly what I want. And we're going to do a trio on each card. So I lay down little dabs of glue, and then I'm going to use a placing tool or an embellishment wand to pick up the hearts that I want and pop them in place. The glue does go on white, but it will dry clear. So once the glue is completely dry, you're just going to see this really pretty translucent indigo heart and not the white glue underneath. I'll place each of these on a white top fold card base, and our awesome Stardust Trail scene cards are all finished. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for these 2 scene cards featuring brand new products from the Mama Elephant June 2023 release. The supplies I used to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me today for another paper crafting tutorial. I love being able to share with this incredible community of crafters. I want to give a huge shout out and special thank you to my amazing Patreon members. If you're interested in joining Patreon, please click the link in the description underneath the video here on YouTube. Patreon is a private community where you can support more of what I do. There's exclusive content, you'll receive a handmade birthday card from me during your birthday month, monthly lives for my top tier patrons, and more. We would love to have you join our growing community. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, click the like button, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you're always notified when I have a video or go live. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you again next time.